Back in 2008, the Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian hit the big screen, and it was quite a departure from the book. I think it maintained the heart of the book, but it was quite a departure. But I have some ideas on how they should have done it. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin. We have a Wrinkle in Time coming out here really soon. A classic book being turned into an epic movie. So I want to travel back to the year 2008, where a classic book by C.S. Lewis, Prince Caspian, was turned into an epic film. Now, anytime you take a book and you turn it into a movie, there's going to be stuff you lose, because you can't translate everything from a book into a film. Some things you got to tell just a little bit differently to try to convey the same idea, because you can't convey it the same way on screen. A number of things. Sometimes you want to open your film with an incredible action sequence that lays some plot to suck in the audience right away, whereas the book may have started a little bit slower. I mean, sometimes there's just different things you have to do with the film to draw you in. That said, there were a lot of great scenes and a lot of great character moments that existed in the book that never made the film, that I think, number one, would have made the film way more of a success, and number two, would have made the story so deep and much more richer. So there's a lot of things from that book they should have kept. So how should they have done it? So there's a lot of things they really should have done differently to pull us more into this movie and turn things around. But I'm going to focus on three big things that they could have done and should have done to turn this movie around and not pull their punches with this movie. I think thing number one, what they had to do was tell the story the way C.S. Lewis did, from the perspective of the children. I mean, I like how the movie opened with Peter fighting those bullies in the subway. Not the subway, but the train station. Why do I like that? Because it shows Peter is having a hard time adjusting to life on Earth. He went to Narnia, he grew up, he became a king, had all the honor and respect due him as a king. He comes back to Earth, he's a kid again, and he's a nobody. He's having a hard time adjusting to that. He's now got pride, he's got an ego, his ego is bruised, and there's something about it that's sympathetic, because that's got to take a psychological toll to grow up and then be a kid again. We see Edmund, he jumps in and just has his brother's back. No words and no questions asked. He just jumps into this and has his brother's back. In the first movie, what was he? He was a treacherous little turd. In this movie, he is passionately jumping into the fray to have his king's back, to have his brother's back, and to fight side by side with his brother. Susan is trying to knit herself to the world because she fears she's never going back to Narnia. She's going through glamour magazines and beauty magazines, knitting herself to the world. And Lucy, she's just, our innocent believer as always. And so I like how Peter's fight and everybody's reaction to Peter's fight in the beginning establishes all this. Then we have the mystery when they get sucked into Narnia. At first it's great, but nothing is right. Cair Paravel is ancient ruins. There was never ancient ruins in Narnia before. Now we know how this all went. So I like how this happened in the movie, especially when they met Trumpkin, played by Peter Dinklage.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
But now here's the big difference that I would make. Peter Dinklage now sits by the fire and tells them the history that they've all missed. And I think our advantage to doing it this way versus how it was done in the movie, now we can get some backstory on things. It's been 1,300 years. The Telmarines came and they conquered Narnia. What was one of the big things they did? Well, now that it's 1,300 years later, they have established school systems where they're taught the Telmarine version of history. The victors, the conquerors, they write the history. Narnia talking animals, that is nothing more than fairy tales. Aslan, who's that? That never existed. And so now you have this false history that is being spread, and you have the truth being suppressed, and the Narnians themselves, they are displaced from their homes with no place left for them in their own country, so they're living in bondage. So we could get that established far better with no punches pulled from that. And diving into this educational system thing, yeah, it's going to add a splash of controversy to the film. I think this film needed something like that. And then we could get to Prince Caspian with his tutor Cornelius, and how Cornelius teaches him in secret the truth of Aslan, the truth of the talking beast and old Narnia, and how Prince Caspian has such a hunger and a thirst for that. All right, so then from this point forward, Miraz has a son. He wants to snuff out Caspian, so Caspian has to leave in the middle of the night. Then he rides into the woods, just like in the movie, and he meets all the Narnians. The only big difference here is Trumpkin gets to stick around instead of getting kidnapped right here at the beginning. And I think Trumpkin being here adds a dynamic, because Trumpkin is an unbeliever. I mean, here he is, something labeled a fairy tale by the Telmarines, and yet he himself labels Aslan a fairy tale. He just is a staunch unbeliever. And then you have that with Nickabrick, who is somebody's like, well, okay, where's Aslan been all this time? So, like, you have all that interesting dynamic that could come into play, and now we can have fun with the War Council on the lawn, when all the animals get together with this son of Adam who wants to give them back their land. And I think what we need to do different here, Cornelius needs to have snuck away from the palace like he did in the book, sneak onto the lawn, and on the lawn present publicly to Prince Caspian Susan's magic horn that if you blow it, help will come. But of course they're not going to blow it. Why? You have half the people screaming saying, I'm not placing my life on a fairy tale. You have the other half of the people saying, no man, let's blow the horn. Let's get the ancient kings to appear or Aslan to appear. We need help. We can't do this alone. But let's have Nickabrick and Trumpkin be on the same page here. We are all alone, so we're going to do this alone. And let's have Nickabrick be the guy who says, hey, you came from Mirez's camp. He thinks we're fairy tales. Let's do the element of surprise. Lead us to the castle. Sneak us in. And let's do a surprise attack. And let's keep it the same as the movie, minus the 4 children because, you know, they're not there. So this is not a thing of pride. This is a thing of inexperience. This is a thing of Prince Caspian yielding to peer pressure. And so they fight and they lose terribly. And then when they leave and retreat, I want to have the Telmarines track them and find them in the woods where Caspian was nursed back to health and on their own home turf, defeated by the Telmarines. And then they have to go hide yet again in Aslan's house. But now they've lost so many men, they've lost so many supplies, they have one recourse: blow the horn. Which now brings us right back to where we are, where Trumpkin was sent to find the 4 kings and queens possibly appearing somewhere here in the ancient ruins. Point number 2, there were epic Aslan scenes in the book that were cut from this film. And they needed these scenes. These scenes would have done more to add power and depth to the movie, as well as given us the amazing points that C.S. Lewis gives without preaching them at us, but just by showing them to us in the way that he writes. So we have Peter's pride. Peter is just full of it. I mean, and when he gets back to Narnia and he introduces himself to, Trumpkin, he's like, hi, I am High King Peter, the Magnificent.
Probably could have left off the last bit.
Probably.
I love stuff like that. It's hilarious, and it just shows you how inflated his ego is. And so what we need to do here and now is not do this the way it was actually done in the film. We need to do it the way it was done in the book. Peter thinks he knows where he's going, not thinking about the fact that the landscape has changed in 1,300 years, and they come to a gorge where it appears that there is no way to cross. Now, Peter, in his pride, led them there because he figured there's no other way to go. This is the way to go. I know Narnia. I'm the king of this land. You, Trumpkin, you've lived here, but shut your dang mouth. I know where stuff is. And so having him have that kind of pride, I think it fits this scenario. And when they get to the gorge, this is where Lucy sees Aslan, but nobody else does. And they do this in the film. And they have that epic line in the film where Peter's like, well, why wouldn't he show himself to me? And she looks at him and says, well, are you looking for him? But Peter gets his way and continues to lead them the wrong way. And every step they took was a hardship. Lucy sees a bear. She thinks this bear's a talking bear. It's a wild bear, so it tries to eat them. And so now they kill the bear, and consequently, they eat the bear. So then they continue to go further down the road, and as they spend all day going the wrong way, they come on a Telmarine outpost. And what I think needs to happen here, because it happens in the book, there's an attack that happens here. They get to this outpost, and they're shot at with arrows. But why not have some of these guys on the outpost come out with horses and come riding out chasing them? So now Trumpkin has to get Lucy hidden in somewhere to safety because she's got her little vial of healing juice. And then we need High King Peter take his stand with Edmund with the sword and have some sort of sword fight with some of these guys, Susan up somewhere, peeling them off with arrows, and why not do a really cool action sequence here? But what this does is it wastes time, because now we're going to cut over to Prince Caspian, who again is in another skirmish and is losing. Perhaps this is what we're getting. Had they listened to Lucy, they could have been there helping Caspian. Maybe the battle could have been won here, but more men are being lost because they're not there to help them, because they went the long way, because Peter in his pride said, my way or the frickin' highway. I'm the king. I don't care if there's something called erosion or earthquakes. I know this land. We're doing this my way. So this is a way we still get to keep the pride of Peter that we had in the film while having some of the epic stuff going on in the book. So we cut between those two battles, and finally Peter, humble, goes, okay, let's go back, Lucy, to where you saw Aslan. So they go back, And they camp there, and this is where Lucy in the book has an epic encounter with Aslan. And basically Aslan says, why didn't you come to me earlier? She goes, well, then I would have been alone coming to you because they didn't believe me. Okay, I know I wouldn't have been alone because I would have been with you, but still, I mean, oh, are you telling me things would have turned out better had I had just ignored them and gone with you? And then Aslan says, hey, nobody is told what would have happened. But what you can find out is what will happen. For instance, what will happen right now if you were to go wake up your brothers and your sister in Trumpkin and you were to tell them you saw me again and that you were going to follow me? What would happen if you did that? And Lucy's like, well, are they going to see you? Not at first. And of course, you know, everybody's mad at Lucy. They're annoyed with Lucy and they think she's nuts. So this is hard for her. And I think we need that. We needed that in this film because what we needed was a picture of faith. That she has had a true, genuine encounter with Aslan. Aslan has truly spoken to her and given her instruction, and nobody at all believes her, and nobody's listening to her. That was a powerful moment in the book to see this act of faith, where she goes and she wakes them up, and she tells them, look, I'm going to follow. You don't see him, but I do, so I'm going to follow him. You need to follow me, but no matter what, I'm following him. And throughout the book, we read how scared she is. We needed that in this movie. We needed Edmund to rise up and say, hey, I looked like a true jerk last time I didn't listen to her, and I was a traitor. And I think we need to listen to her now. And he chooses to follow. And everybody else drags their feet, Susan complaining the loudest and the most. And we needed that scene. The other reason we needed that scene, as they're on this journey, one by one, they begin to see Aslan. The message here is clear. Lucy saw him from the beginning because she was always looking for him. Edmund saw him first from the other siblings because he believed Lucy. He was different than he was in the last book. And we needed to see that change in him and see him be the first one other than Lucy to see Aslan. Peter eventually sees Aslan. Last but never least, of the children, Susan sees Aslan. And she even says, Lucy, I did believe you. Or at least I know I could have believed you if I would have let myself. I mean, do you see how simple of a line that is? But how much weight and power a line like that holds? Do you see how pictures like that are so weighty and so powerful? And how much weight that could have added to the film? We needed that scene, and we needed that stuff to be in this film to give it the weight, to give it the punch that the book had. The third thing that this movie should have done is it should have had Susan and Lucy riding Aslan's back like it did in the book, where he went around liberating Narnia. Instead of that dumb scene where Lucy's on the bridge and she pulls out her knife and she's like, what was that? That was weak is what that was. That was weak. You know what was strong? You know what drove the book home? Is Aslan liberating the land. Like I said earlier, talking about the educational system where the conquerors and the victors get to write their version of history, Aslan goes about tearing down all those lies. They go and they find a girls' boarding school where they're being taught the really boring Telmarine version of history, and this girl looks out the window and sees a lion coming. She's like, Professor, there's a lion! And the professor knocks her grade down because she was speaking nonsense that a fairy tale was coming towards them. And then Aslan comes and blows down the walls of the school, and all her little pea brains can't handle the fact that there's a freaking lion here, and a talking lion. And they all run for their lives, but the little girl's like, can I join you? And Aslan's like, sure. And Aslan goes about freeing the land. More and more people join him. Most people run in terror, and out of all those people that run in terror, there's always a few that join him. They come to an all-boys school, and I love how C.S. Lewis words it, that there's these boys that looked a lot like pigs that were the students, and this professor sees Aslan coming, and she says, Aslan, stop, wait, I'm so glad that you're real, I really am. I don't know that they can take it. But Aslan doesn't ask for permission, he just walks right up to the school, the kids freak out, and they run. And C.S. Lewis writes, well, those kids weren't really seen again, but suddenly there were a lot of pigs in the area. While Aslan is out there and he's freeing and liberating the land, Caspian's not seeing that happening. He's not seeing the answer to his prayers. In fact, he's locked in a room with a bunch of bad people, and they're performing a spell to release the spirit of the White Witch because they're waiting for a power to come. They're not seeing it manifest, so in their desperateness, they're trying to do whatever they can to get help. Thankfully, Aslan sent Peter and Edmund to help him at just the right time, and they stopped this horrible thing from happening. But that's the whole message of Prince Caspian. Where has Aslan been? Well, when Prince Caspian blows that horn, the answer came. Instantaneously, the 4 children manifested in Narnia, and Aslan was going to use them to liberate the land. Now, he had wills to contend with when that happened. Peter was full of pride. Susan was full of fear. Lucy was the only believer, but she was too afraid to do this on her own. Edmund was following his king. He had wills to contend with, so he had to get them to get past their pride and get past their fears and to follow him. But Aslan never left, and he never stopped working. How when Prince Caspian felt lost and alone, and he cried out for help by blowing that horn, and nothing manifested immediately, what he didn't see was something was happening. Things were turning in his favor. He just had to hold on to the faith and not give up the hope. And I find Prince Caspian to be one of the most encouraging books when tough things are going on and I don't understand where God is or where the answer is. I just have to know when I cried out to him, he heard me. The answer is coming. Things are turning. Even if I can't see it, it's on the way. And I think books like this, the punch that they pack is a strong reminder of that. But having Aslan go about and liberate the land would have been a far stronger choice than just Lucy standing there on the bridge and going with a knife. I mean, what was that? So that's what I think about Narnia. Those are the 3 big things that I think if they had done those things, they could have definitely turned around this movie instead of pulling their punches and made it absolutely epic. How do you think they could have fixed Prince Caspian? While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell next to it, that way you're notified from my next theological analysis or movie review or anything else that I drop here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.